I was about 12 years old when I first encountered pornography. Seeing naked bodies, watching sex videos impacted me personally. It had a negative and traumatic effect on me as a child. As a Christian, I had a hard time in my spiritual life because of this addiction to pornography. I was struggling with lust, I was struggling with impure thoughts, I was struggling with sexual fantasies, I was struggling with pornography. As a Christian, I had a hard time following God and experiencing God's forgiveness and God's love in my life. My spiritual life was a roller coaster ride. It took many years until I experienced freedom and healing. So if you're struggling with porn, I understand what you're going through. I understand how difficult it is to wrestle and to battle lust of the flesh and impurity of thoughts. I know how it is to be desperate to remove all this garbage in your heart and in your mind. Of course, all our healing and all our freedom from any form of addiction comes from the grace of God and through the power of Jesus Christ. But we need to take certain steps, responsible and wise, boundaries, and discipline and control so that we can also be able to renew our minds and cleanse our hearts. Today we'll be talking about how to overcome porn addiction. Temptation is everywhere. It is a daily battle that we are confronted with. Every day we are enticed and tempted by what we see on television, on the internet, in the movies. This battle against lust is very strong. Lahat tayo natutokso. Naku, ang dami-daming tukso. Sa mga palabas, sa mga napapanood, sa mga naririnig na kanta, sa mga nakikita nating mga larawan. Lahat tayo may sexual temptations. Lahat tayo may sexual struggles. That is why James chapter 1 verse 14 to 15 says, "But each person is tempted when he is lured and enticed by his own desire or his own lust. Then desire, when it has conceived, gives birth to sin, and sin, when it's fully grown, brings forth death." Often, this is what draws our soul into pornography. We have sinful desires. We have lustful desires in our hearts, in our minds, that lures us to porn. In Matthew 5:28, Jesus says, "But I tell you that anyone who looks at a woman lustfully has already committed adultery with her in his heart." Satan knows our weaknesses. He uses beautiful images and seductive thoughts to entice us. We become curious and intrigued. We fall into Satan's trap and his web until pornography becomes a stronghold, an addiction in our lives. But first, let's talk about what is porn addiction. Internet pornography has similarity with substance addiction, addiction to gambling, addiction to alcohol, or addiction to drugs. There was a research done comparing the brains of those who have compulsive addiction to view pornography. Their brains have similarity to the brains of the people who have addiction to alcohol and drugs. So addiction is about lack of control. When you lack control over certain appetites, certain desires, you're becoming an addict. Something is controlling you. So how do you know if you're addicted to porn? You may be addicted to porn if you have these signs: losing track of time spent watching pornography, having difficulty completing tasks at work or at home, social isolation away from family and friends, feeling guilty or defensive about porn usage, feeling a sense of euphoria when consuming pornography, continued use despite negative consequences. Porn consumption feels out of control. Efforts have been unsuccessful to stop. And use of pornography consumes your thoughts. You anticipate use when unavailable. Malalaman mo raw na addicted ka sa porn kapag wala ka ng control dito. Lagi mo itong hinahanap, nauubos ang oras mo at panahon mo at hindi mo nagagawa ang mga gawain mo dahil sa kakapanood, kakabasa ng porn. So what causes porn addiction? Ano bang dahilan bakit nakaka-addict ang porn? As any addiction, starts with the little things. Sa simula, patikim-tikim, pakonti-konti, hanggang siya hindi mo na inaasahan, wala ka ng kontrol, hinahanap-hanap mo na siya. One cause of porn addiction is boredom. Kapag wala kang magawa at pagka wala kang trabaho at wala kang pasok, dahil bored ka, ayun, pumupunta ka sa mga websites na may pornography at nanonood ka. Another cause of porn addiction is loneliness. Kapag malungkot ka, when you feel isolated, you feel that nobody loves you, parang wala nagmamahal sa'yo at wala kang kaibigan at wala kang makausap. Loneliness can cause porn addiction. Anxiety, kapag ka lagi kang stress, lagi kang nababagabag, lagi kang nangangamba, your life is full of fear. Porn addiction can become an anesthesia to all your pain and all your worries. Ginagamit mo ang porn para makalma ka, para ma-relax ka, para mawala yung mga takot mo. Depression. Depression can be a cause of porn addiction. Kasi parang drugs na nagbibigay sa'yo ng saya, nagbibigay sa'yo ng pumapawi ng lahat ng sugat at dalamhati sa iyong puso. Porn addiction can be an artificial form of happiness, a temporary relief to your pain. Kaya when you are depressed, you are prone to this kind of temptation. That is why all of us can potentially be addicted to porn. Why? Because of its powerful effect on our brains, in our emotions, in our lives. Because of its promise of temporal happiness, avoidance of pain, momentary ecstasy, and artificial love. Kaya siya nakaka-addict kasi parang pansamantala kang sumasaya, pansamantala kang nahahay, at pansamantala kang napapawi lahat ng mga problema mo. How do we overcome porn addiction? Number 1, you acknowledge the struggle. The first step toward breaking the habit of watching pornography is when you break free from the shame that hinders you and that causes you to hide. Kailangan mo munang aminin na meron kang problema. Kasi nga naman, itong panonood ng pornography ay isa sa mga nakakahiya na mga problema na hindi natin kinikwento sa mga tao. Watching porn is one of the problems we don't share to anybody else. It's a secret that we hide. The problem is when we hide our sexual struggles, we become worse. We don't get healed, we don't get help, and we don't get freedom. But when we are honest about it, we start our journey towards healing and freedom and wholeness. Mas nagiging malaya tayo kapag ka umaamin tayo sa ating mga struggle. So very important yung may nasasabihan ka, meron ka nasusumbungan. When you are able to share your struggles, your deep secrets, and your inner wounds and inner hurts, the more you are likely to experience freedom from your bondage. Number 2, understand that you are not alone. Another step toward getting out of your cycle of addiction to porn is when you realize that you are not alone in this struggle. Kapag ka nalaman mo na mayroon ding mga tao na kagaya mo na nag-i-struggle sa ganitong temptation. When you hear stories of people who confess about their sins and who talk about their journey and who talk about their sexual struggles, then you gain confidence. If they can admit it, you can also do it. Tsaka magandang malaman mo yung katotohanan na hindi ka nag-iisa. Maraming mga tao na alam yung pinagdadaanan mo at naiintindihan yung struggle mo. When we understand that we are not alone in our sexual struggles and our battle against pornography, the more likely we can gain confidence in overcoming our addictions. Number 3, install a good internet filter. Of course, we strive to control our minds, to control our emotions, to control our will from yielding to temptation. Pero maganda rin kung meron kang control sa iyong mga gadgets. Find a good internet filter or internet censor that blocks porn websites that come into your browser. Makakatulong ito para iwas ka sa temptation. If you know your weakness, if you know your temptation, then you have to avoid it. Pag alam mo nang mahina ka sa website na yan, wag mo nang puntahan. Pag alam mong struggle mo yung kanta na yan o yung palabas na yan, wag mo nang panoorin. Pero makakatulong din kung yung gadget mo, yung laptop mo, yung desktop mo, ay kinokontrol din niya yung mga websites na hindi mo dapat puntahan. Number 4, understand the nature of the battle. Kailangan pinag-aaralan mo anong epekto ng pornography sa iyong buhay. Sexual addiction is not just a moral problem and a spiritual problem. Sexual addiction is also a brain problem. Research shows that every time we watch porn, every time we get a high on watching these videos or looking at these pictures, something happens in our brain. Something is rewired in our brain. That's why we get addicted. So when we seek healing and freedom from this addiction, it's not just about the spiritual aspect, but it's also about the neurological aspect. You have to renew your mind, literally. You have to replace bad habits with good habits. You need to replace bad thoughts with good thoughts. That's how we set ourselves free from our sexual struggles and sexual addictions. Yes, we read our Bibles, we pray, we get ourselves into groups, and we actively seek spiritual community. But There are physical, neurological aspects of our addiction, of our temptations. Malaki ang epekto sa iyong isip, sa iyong puso, sa iyong katawan, sa iyong kaluluwa ng internet porn addiction. Number 5, find healing for your emotional wounds. We live in a broken and fallen world. We grew up in imperfect families where we get hurt, we get rejected, we felt unloved. So all our pain and all our hurts and all our wounds growing up can lead to certain addictions. Yung mga sugat sa ating mga buhay, yun ang nagdutulak sa atin para magkaroon ng mga addictions. And the only way to be free from these addictions is when our wounds are healed, when our hurts are healed. Kapag ka naghilom ang ating mga sugat at tayo nagpatawad sa lahat ng nanakit sa atin at tayo naka-move on sa ating mga hinanakit at mga galit at mga tampo, only then can we be free from our sexual struggles and porn addiction. So you have to identify what are your hurts, what are your baggages, what are your emotional wounds. Have you been abused? Did your parents divorce? Have you ever felt rejected or abandoned? Have you been bullied in school? Madami daw tayong mga sugat at mga hinanakit sa ating mga puso na dala-dala. When you identify all these hurts and all these wounds, then you seek healing. Healing from God and healing from a community that will allow you to forgive, help you to let go, and help you to accept God's love and forgiveness and healing through the cross of Jesus. Kasi yung ating mga addictions are just symptoms. The roots are our hurts and wounds. So minsan, kapag tinitreat lang natin yung addiction, bawal ito, bawal yan, pigilan mo ito, pigilan mo yan, parang kulang. Kailangan mas malalim. Punta tayo sa ugat. And the roots of our addictions are our hurts and our wounds. Sa aking buhay, yun ang nakatulong sa akin. I was able to find healing from all my hurts and wounds. I was able to forgive my abusers. I was able to forgive all those who have hurt me. I was able to forgive myself. And I was able to move from my brokenness to healing. It's the love of God. It's the healing of God. It's the power of the cross that melts all our hatred and all our anger and all our bitterness from abuse, from damages, from all the hurts and the hatred that were hurled against us. So, to be free from your addiction to porn, you have to find healing from all your hurts and wounds. Kailangan hanapin mo paano ka maghihilom, paano pagagalingin ng Diyos ang lahat ng iyong mga sugat. Number 6, practice accountability. You have to surround yourself with a few friends, trusted friends, safe friends. Yung mga tao makikinig sa'yo, tatanggapin ka, ano man ang sabihin mo. Tutulungan ka na umahon sa iyong pagkakalugmok. These are people who will love you no matter what, who will journey with you, who will walk with you until you are free from your addictions, until you are healed from all your wounds, until you overcome your struggles. Napakaganda nito, no? When we are accountable. Kasi when we're isolated, when we are alone, when we are battling our sexual struggles on our own, hindi talaga tayo magtatagumpay. Pero kung meron tayong mga kaibigan na kasama natin, kadamay, na pwedeng masabihan, pwedeng matakbuhan kapag tayo natutokso, then we are better off. We are more likely to succeed to overcome our sexual struggles and our addiction to porn when we are accountable to someone, to a group of few friends, trusted friends. Yung hindi ka ilalaglag, yung hindi ka ichismis, yung hindi ka itatakwil kapag ka ikay nagkakasala. Sabi ng Romans 12:15, weep with those who weep, rejoice with those who rejoice. So when we are accountable with a group of friends, you let them into your pain, you let them into your joy, you let them into your celebrations, you let them into your struggles. Kasi minsan kung yung ating mga relationship mababaw, very shallow, we just talk about things that are good and nice and cute and funny, then we don't get healed. But when we talk about our inner hearts, our struggles, and our dark secrets, and allow people to enter our pain, to walk with us and to help us and to guide us, that kind of accountability helps us overcome our struggles. And by the way, you have to identify your stressors. You have to identify what triggers you to be sexually tempted. Be watchful when you are hungry, when you are angry, when you are tired, when you are lonely. These situations make you vulnerable to sexual temptations. Mas madali kang matutokso sa porn kapag ka na-experience mo tong apat na ito. Kapag ka gutom ka, kapag ka galit ka, kapag ka malungkot ka, kapag ka pagod ka. So let me summarize what we talked about so far. How do we overcome porn addiction? Number 1, acknowledge the struggle. Number 2, understand that you are not alone. Number 3, install a good internet filter. Number 4, understand the nature of the battle. Number 5, find healing for your emotional wounds. And number 6, practice accountability. So in our battle against porn addiction, there is hope. We can find freedom and healing through Jesus Christ and through the people who care for us. You have to break isolation and learn to find help. Learn to ask for help. That is where we build trust, and that is where we find freedom through Jesus Christ. The journey towards overcoming our sexual struggles might be difficult, but because of the grace of God and because of people who love us and journey with us, we can live in purity, we can live with integrity, we can live with freedom.